It's been 5 years since the virus hit. The soldiers coming back from the war were the first to be infected. I remember the first cases clear as day. Vexing virus hounds veterans, the news said. Soldiers coming home from Vietnam, barely escaping with their lives. Going to bed one night and never waking up. No one in Vietnam had it, so the government didn't know what to tell us. They couldn't blame the commies for this one, I guess. When the soldiers started dropping like flies, I guess they tried to comfort us by saying that the virus wasn't contagious. And I guess we all believed them. Life continued on as normal. No one wore any kind of hospital mask or protective equipment. Then one day, we all started getting sick.
Dad, wake up!
Men started dropping dead in the streets. I guess it made sense. All the people from Vietnam were guys, too. The men that weren't lucky enough to drop dead or die in their sleep literally lost their voices. You'd go to bed one night and wake up unable to talk. And, I've lost my voice before and all that, but it was like our vocal cords vanished during the night.
Well, fine. If you won't talk to me, I'm taking the kids to my sister's.
Then it hit the women. Unlike men, they were perfectly fine, but they lost their voices too. The kids were the only ones left, but soon enough, they grew up and couldn't speak anymore.
I can still speak. Please don't hurt me. I'm just trying to get food. Get away from me now!
Let's just say America hasn't been doing well. It was a normal day, a Tuesday, I think. I threw out my radio when the virus hit. I don't really keep track of time anymore. Not like I need to now. I was riding the train home after scavenging for food. I mostly sat by myself with my arms crossed and eyes closed, trying to doze off to the rumbling of the tracks. There was a rustle next to me, and I kind of just lazily opened my eyes to look. A woman was sitting next to me, perfect posture, and eyes straight ahead. She wasn't what I would call the picture of fashion. Her clothes looked about 50 or so years too old. She broke her silent stare to turn her head to me. We locked eyes, I still with arms crossed.
Can I help you?
My eyes widened. This woman had just spoken on this near-silent train. No one seemed to pay her any mind, though. Everyone kept to themselves.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Against my better judgment, I remember nodding yes. She looked shocked and turned to face me completely, though I remained with arms crossed so I didn't look like I was tripping. When I was younger, I guess I thought I had been tripping whenever this happened.
Can you speak?
I shook my head no. She seemed to deflate for a bit before perking up.
Listen, I'm going to follow you home. I need your help.
Were it any other scenario, I would have been shocked that a woman had so brazenly exclaimed that she was going to come home with me. But I'm an old hat at this whole seen shades of the past thing. When my stop arrived, we got out and I walked to my shack. The shade followed me, looking around with wide eyes. Every few steps, she stopped to look around. I kept having to beckon her to follow me, like she was a lost dog. When we finally arrived at my not-so-humble abode, I sat my scavengings down and turned to face the shade.
You have a nice house.
I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote out a simple question. What do you want?
Oh, right. Listen, I have unfinished business here, and I need you to help me.
I responded by simply asking, what else is new? It's always the same with these shades. They always are from the past, and they always need help with something.
A little bit rude, don't you think?
I shrugged. At this point, I've seen so many shades that nothing is new. I write out a simple question. What is your name?
My name is Mary Price, Dr. Price. I was a doctor during the Great War.
I furrowed my brow. I never enjoy having to tell spirits from World War I that we had a second World War. I furiously scribbled down an explanation and showed it to Dr. Price.
Well, that's not good. What year is it now?
I wrote down 1980.
Wow. You know, back in my day, people like you...
I quickly made a gesture for her to be quiet. Whatever she was going to say, it was going to be bad. I scribbled out a question. How can I help you?
If you can't speak, and neither can the rest of the country, it means that we messed up.
I simply furrowed my brow and waited for her to explain.
During World War I, me and my doctor companions, we thought about biological warfare. We certainly didn't know as much as I'm sure you do now, but we entertained the idea of creating a virus. We would infect the powers with it, and their soldiers would drop dead. We never got to do many tests, but...
I couldn't believe my ears. Was this woman really telling me that this virus was a man-made thing?
One of my colleagues, Dale Wolf, I guess he was a turncoat. When we had finished the preliminary tests of the virus, I remember him withdrawing a gun.
Dale, what are you doing?
Death to Allied powers.
He absconded with the virus, and I'm not sure what happened next. I kind of died.
I listened to her story, nodding and contemplating.
Next thing I know, I'm on a train, and no one can see or hear me, except you. And I'm scared that this no one can talk thing is my fault.
Thinking fast, I scribbled another question. Did you ever come up with some kind of cure?
Like everything, it wasn't as developed as I would have liked, but yes, we called it Transletra. One time we administered it to another colleague who had volunteered to take a dose, Dr. Nguyen, and he made a full recovery. We can't bring back the dead, but if we can find even just one dose of Transletra, there could be hope.
I decided to operate on the belief that this woman was not crazy. I told her, via notepad, that there was a doctor clinic around the block, and that maybe this Transletra was there.
Then what are we waiting for? We have to hurry up.
She tried to grab my wrist, to pull me along, but her hand phased through me. We stared at each other before she retracted her arm. I wordlessly stood up and led the way. I led Dr. Price out of my home and down the road. She resumed her gawking, a look of not wonder, but of disgust on her face. I hadn't seen her face before now, but she was not happy with the America of today. In any other scenario, I would have loved to pick her brain and ask why. I walked, as I have for years, in complete silence. Dr. Price was quiet as well, but perhaps in stunned silence. We passed people sitting outside ruined shacks, people with their ribs practically showing from starvation. A child clung to her mother, face speckled with dirt.
I hoped things would have improved after the war.
Mom, I'm so hungry.
She can talk. Kid, you have to help her.
I simply kept walking. I can hardly take care of myself, let alone a child. Starving is a part of life, I guess. We continued to walk towards the clinic, eventually hearing the shuffling of feet up ahead. There were 3 men outside the clinic. The windows had been shattered and they were looting the place. I sighed, not making any noise, but still getting my point across. I was not happy. I looked to Dr. Price as if to say, "You really want to try looking in here?"
We have to try.
I rolled my eyes and continued walking forwards. The 3 men stopped their looting to look at me as I approached, Dr. Price invisible to their eyes. I gestured to myself. I pointed at a pill bottle in one of their hands. I gestured at myself again, a clear indicator that I wanted some of the drugs in the clinic. I pulled out my notepad and wrote down, I need to get inside to find a specific drug. Can I go in?
Why are you asking for permission? Just go in. We're saving all of America, for God's sake.
The men looked at each other. They looked at me, then each other again. My only answer was the three cracking their knuckles in succession. I'm not sure what came over me, because instead of turning around, I put my hands up. Contempt for these men, maybe? A wish to help Price, maybe. Who knows? I looked over to Price, who was horrified, but hope yet burned in her eyes.
Be careful.
I lumbered towards the men, fists raised. The men landed blows on me, but I was simply stronger. I battered them back for every hit I took. I'm not wet behind the ears when it comes to fighting. I know how to defend myself. This was to help Price, sure. But as I socked one of the men in the nose, I realized that this was for me. I had a stake in this. I was going to help fix this goddamn society, and anyone saying otherwise could kiss my ass. Wiping blood from my mouth, I stepped over the collapsed men. Dr. Price followed me inside the clinic. I entertained the humor of pretending to wait for a doctor's appointment, but Price did not look too happy. We went inside the offices of doctors long since dead, searching the stores and cabinets for anything labeled Transletra.
Try to find a syringe, too, to inject it.
I wished I could speak, if only for her to hear me groan in annoyance. As I pawed through the stores, I saw a green bottle that stood out. Wrapping my fingers around it, I pulled it out of the cabinet. The masking tape over the bottle read one word: Transletra.
No way.
I uncorked the bottle and grabbed a syringe, flawlessly putting Transletra inside. Dr. Price guided my hands so that I filled the syringe up to what she concluded was probably the right dose. Looking into her eyes and taking a deep breath, I tapped my veins and injected the antiviral. It stung like the queen bee herself. I dropped the syringe and clutched my arm, hissing in pain.
Kid, you just...
What? I covered my mouth. My eyes began to water. I hadn't heard my own voice in 5 years. Oh my God. Dr. Price shared my emotions, smiling wide. Were she but still human, I feel she would have hugged me.
We did it, kid. You did it.
My name is Asim.
Asim, it's good to hear your voice.
Afterwards, I ran outside and I spoke to the 3 men. They were shocked, but I managed to keep them at bay and explained that I found the cure. With some encouraging, I managed to get them to take the dosage, and they had much the same reaction as I upon hearing their own voices. With the help of the recovering public, we managed to find more doses of Transletra and spread them out. In a few months, many people were cured. Like Dr. Price had said, we can't bring back the dead, but we can help the living.
You did well, kid. Asim. Asim.
Couldn't have done it without you.
I guess it's time for me to go. No more business here for me.
I'm glad I could help.
When I first came here, I wanted to get this over and done with. But I kind of don't want to leave now. I want to stay and watch the new America, but it isn't up to me. Be good, Asim.
Of course, Mary.